The year was 1944. Bombs were still falling across Europe. Entire cities were burning. Tens of millions were already dead. And while the world focused on the battlefield, something else was happening quietly inside a luxury hotel in New Hampshire. 44 nations gathered at Bretton Woods to decide who would control the global financial system after the war ended. Not who would win the war. That part was already obvious. The real question was who would control money itself? Who would issue the currency the world trusted? Who would finance global trade? Who would write the economic rules everyone else had to follow? And before the meeting even started, the answer was already decided. America walked into Bretton Woods holding nearly 70% of the world's gold reserves. Its factories were untouched by war. Its economy was exploding. Europe was bankrupt. Britain was exhausted. The old financial empire was collapsing in real time. The United States didn't seize global dominance with tanks. It seized it with debt, gold, manufacturing power, and financial infrastructure. Now, 80 years later, something extraordinary is happening. Because China appears to be running the exact same playbook, quietly, patiently, systematically. And if this strategy succeeds, the consequences won't just reshape geopolitics. It could alter the value of every dollar, every savings account, every financial market on Earth. But to understand what China is doing today, you first have to understand how Britain lost control of the global financial system in the first place. Because history rarely repeats perfectly. But sometimes it rhymes so closely it becomes impossible to ignore. At the beginning of the 20th century, Britain was the center of global finance. The pound sterling dominated international trade. London banks financed commerce across continents. Entire economies depended on British credit systems. If two countries traded with each other, chances were the transaction passed through London somewhere along the chain, and that gave Britain enormous power. Not military power alone, financial power. The ability to issue the currency everyone else needed created what economists call reserve currency privilege. Britain could borrow cheaply, finance massive deficits, and project influence far beyond its borders because the world depended on sterling. America studied this system carefully. And over time, Washington realized something critical. You don't need to invade an empire to replace it. You just need to become financially indispensable while the empire slowly exhausts itself. That process began during World War I. America lent huge amounts of money to Britain and France. By the end of the war, Europe owed Washington staggering sums. Creditors gained leverage. Debtors lost flexibility. Then came gold accumulation. During the 1920s and 1930s, America absorbed enormous quantities of global gold reserves. As Europe struggled through economic crises and war debts, the United States consolidated financial credibility. And then came the final ingredient: patience. Before we go deeper into what this could mean for the global economy, make sure to like the video and subscribe so you don't miss our upcoming deep dives. Because what happened next changed the entire modern world. Britain entered World War II already weakened financially. By 1944, it was dependent on American support just to survive. The power relationship had completely reversed. Then came Bretton Woods. British economist John Maynard Keynes proposed a neutral global reserve currency called the Bancor. He understood the danger of allowing one nation to dominate global finance. But America had the leverage. America had the gold. America had the industrial base. America had the creditor position. So the dollar became the foundation of the post-war financial system. And the American century began. Now here's the unsettling part. China appears to be following the same five-step strategy almost line by line. First, creditor status. Over the past 2 decades, China has poured enormous amounts of capital into developing nations through the Belt and Road Initiative, ports, railways, highways, energy infrastructure, telecommunications networks. More than $1 trillion in financing stretching across Asia, Africa, Latin America, and parts of Europe. Publicly, these projects are framed as development partnerships. But strategically, they create dependence. Countries deeply indebted to Beijing cannot easily oppose Beijing's geopolitical interests. The leverage slowly shifts toward the lender. Sound familiar? It should. That's exactly how America built influence over Britain and Europe during the first half of the 20th century. But China's strategy extends beyond the developing world. Because Beijing also owns hundreds of billions of dollars in U.S. Treasury securities. And while many people view this as China depending on America, the relationship cuts both ways. Debtors are vulnerable too, especially when their debt keeps growing faster than their economy. And that brings us to the second part of China's strategy: gold. Since the global financial crisis in 2008, China has been accumulating gold at an extraordinary pace. Official reserves have climbed steadily year after year. But many analysts believe China's true holdings are far larger than publicly reported. Some estimates suggest Beijing could control several thousand more tons through state-linked entities that never appear in official statistics. Why does that matter? Because gold still represents something no fiat currency can fully replace. Neutral credibility. Gold cannot be sanctioned. It cannot be printed. It cannot be frozen by another government. And after Russia lost access to hundreds of billions in foreign reserves following sanctions in 2022, every major nation on Earth received the same message instantly. Dollar-based systems carry geopolitical risk, especially if your relationship with Washington deteriorates. That realization accelerated a global shift already underway. Countries began searching for alternatives, and China was ready. This is where the strategy becomes far more serious than most headlines suggest. Because Beijing isn't just buying assets, it's building parallel infrastructure. One of the least discussed but most important developments in global finance is China's cross-border interbank payment system, known as CIPS. At first glance, it sounds technical and boring. It isn't. CIPS is effectively an alternative payment network designed to reduce dependence on SWIFT, the Western-controlled financial messaging system used for international transactions. When Russia was partially cut off from SWIFT, it exposed a brutal reality. The country controlling payment infrastructure controls global commerce. China understood this years ago. So while the West focused on tariffs, trade wars, and semiconductor restrictions, Beijing quietly expanded an entirely separate financial architecture. More countries joined, more banks connected, more trade transactions bypassed the dollar. Not enough to replace the existing system overnight, but enough to slowly reduce dependence on it. And this is where the petrodollar system enters the story. For decades, one of the biggest pillars supporting dollar dominance was oil. Countries needed dollars to buy energy. That created constant global demand for U.S. currency and treasury debt. But cracks are beginning to appear. China has pushed aggressively for yuan-based energy trade agreements. Saudi Arabia has shown increasing openness to non-dollar transactions. Russia and China now conduct massive portions of bilateral trade outside the dollar system entirely. Even discussions that once sounded impossible are now happening openly. BRICS currency proposals, local currency settlements, central bank digital payment systems. Individually, none of these developments destroy dollar dominance. Collectively, they reveal something deeper. The world is slowly preparing for a future where financial power becomes multipolar, and that leads to the most uncomfortable comparison of all. Because the final stage of America's rise in the 1940s wasn't simply about America getting stronger. It was about Britain getting weaker. Empires rarely collapse because a rival suddenly appears stronger overnight. They collapse because maintaining the old system becomes financially unsustainable. And today, America faces pressures that look disturbingly familiar. The national debt has surged past levels once considered unimaginable. Interest payments alone are approaching defense budget scale. Political paralysis makes long-term fiscal reform extraordinarily difficult. Every year, the system requires more borrowing to sustain itself, more debt, more deficits, more dependency on confidence. And reserve currencies ultimately depend on confidence more than anything else. Now, to be clear, China is not replacing the dollar tomorrow. That's important. The United States still possesses enormous advantages. American financial markets remain deeper and more liquid than China's. The rule of law still attracts global capital. U.S. Treasury markets remain the backbone of international finance. Most global reserves are still held in dollars. China also faces serious structural problems of its own: a slowing property sector, demographic decline, capital controls, concerns about transparency and political intervention. These are not small obstacles, but transitions between global financial systems don't happen all at once. They happen gradually, then suddenly. That's exactly how Britain lost reserve currency dominance. The erosion took decades, yet the final transition crystallized during a moment of weakness when the underlying shift had already become irreversible. And this is the phase that makes economists nervous today, because the infrastructure for an alternative system is no longer theoretical. It already exists. Not fully formed, not fully trusted, but operational. That changes everything. For decades, many countries tolerated dollar dependence because there simply was no realistic alternative. Now, for the first time in generations, alternatives are slowly emerging, and every geopolitical conflict accelerates the process further. Every sanction, every trade restriction, every frozen reserve account, each one reminds other nations why dependence can become dangerous. China understands this perfectly, which is why Beijing isn't trying to destroy the dollar directly. It's doing something far smarter. It's trying to reduce the world's need for it. And if that sounds subtle, that's because it is. The real shifts in global finance are usually invisible at first, until suddenly they aren't. In 1944, Britain still looked powerful on paper. It still had global influence. It still controlled vast territories. But financially, the foundation had already shifted underneath it. Bretton Woods simply formalized a transition that had been building for years. Now imagine a future crisis, a major debt shock, a sovereign funding scare. a geopolitical rupture large enough to fracture trust in existing systems. In that moment, countries won't ask who has the biggest military alone. They'll ask which system feels safer, which currency feels stable, which payment network still functions, which reserves cannot be frozen. And China is positioning itself to have answers ready when that moment arrives. That is the real story here. Not an immediate collapse of the dollar, not an overnight Chinese takeover, but a long strategic positioning process that resembles the exact strategy America once used to replace Britain itself. History's irony is almost unbelievable. The United States mastered the mechanics of financial dominance in the 20th century. Now China appears to be studying the same blueprint. The unanswered question is whether America can adapt before the structural pressures become too large to reverse. Can Washington stabilize its debt trajectory? Can it preserve trust in dollar-based systems? Can it maintain alliances strong enough to reinforce financial leadership? Or has the transition already begun quietly beneath the surface? Because once reserve currency transitions accelerate, they become extraordinarily difficult to stop. Britain learned that the hard way. And the most dangerous part is this. Even when intelligent people recognize the shift happening in real time, political systems often fail to respond until the crisis is already unavoidable. That's what makes this moment feel so significant. Not because China has already won, but because for the first time in decades, the architecture of an alternative world financial system is visibly taking shape. And if history is any guide, the countries that prepare for the next system before everyone else usually shape the rules of the world that follows.